Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar. We're really excited about today's speaker as well as today's topic, which is reinventing the wheel, identifying and disrupting broken systems. Before we jump into introducing our speaker and talking about today's very exciting point of topic, let's talk about the Sbdc and who we are and how we help small businesses start, grow, and manage successful small businesses. So the Pennsylvania Sbdc network is a statewide network of 16 small business development centers, as you see pictured here. Every single county in the state of Pennsylvania is covered by a local small business development center. So to find a center nearest you, visit pasbdc.org. And that Pennsylvania network is actually a part of a national network of small business development centers that are sponsored by the Small Business Administration and hosted in conjunction with educational institutions and economic development organizations. So we hope that if you are joining us from another area outside of the state of Pennsylvania, outside of Center County or locally, that you find an area near you, or if you're outside the state of Pennsylvania, find the Sbdc in your home state. So a little bit about our services. We offer free, confidential, one-on-one small business consulting. So we work with small business owners on a variety of topics to help them, as I said, start a business, grow a business, manage a business, transition out of a business, really meeting the small business owner wherever they are and providing expertise. If someone in our center can't help you with a specific topic, we certainly will tap into that statewide network that I mentioned and find an expert who can support your small business needs. We also offer no or low cost educational training, so sessions such as today, as well as longer programs, topics like QuickBooks or marketing or trainings on any other area of small business management. We provide information and resources. And finally, we are connected to a large ecosystem of entrepreneurial resource providers in the Center, Clinton, Mifflin, and Lycoming County areas. And those are the counties that we serve. And we are absolutely always referring small business owners to the resource providers in those areas. And we can find someone who can help you if we can. So that's a little bit about us. Now I'd love to transition and talk about today's speaker. So I'm very, very excited to say that today we will be joined by JT Marino. JT is a Penn State alum. He graduated in the class of 2009. He is the co-founder of the mattress brand Tuft Needle and is currently the Chief Disruption Officer at Serta Simmons Bedding. JT was instrumental in redefining the sleep industry and the retail experience through Tuft Needle's rapid nationwide expansion, award-winning company culture, evolving product offering, and acclaimed advertising campaigns. Prior to Tuft Needle, JT combined principles from both design and engineering to develop future-forward software products in the tech industry. He started his career as an engineer at the world's leading software application consultancy, where he accelerated his experience by working amongst the foremost thought leaders and tech leaders for VC-funded startups and Fortune 500 companies. And since the onset of his career, JT's gained extensive experience building and leading teams to develop innovative and experiential initiatives. JT has been featured on USA Today, Entrepreneur, Forbes Inc., Recode, BuzzFeed, and Mashable, among others. And he's a frequent keynote speaker at startup and industry events such as South by Southwest, Startup Grind, and Shop Talk. He's also been named as one of the Recode 100, Arizona Republic's 35 under 35, received E-Tail West's Visionary of the Year Award, and appeared in McGraw-Hill's curriculum. JT studied computer science and mathematics at Penn State University. So with all that being said, I'm going to bring JT on screen and welcome him so we can get started. How are you today, JT?
I am great. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. And to provide everyone in the audience a little bit of context, we get to tap into JT's super cool experience because he is joining the Invent Penn State initiative here on campus for about a month as our entrepreneur in residence. So he's here, students and university programs are tapping into his expertise. So we feel very, very fortunate that he can be here with us to chat a little bit to all of you small business owners and entrepreneurs today. So thanks, JT. Before we jump into our topic, I just sort of want to provide a little bit of context about where I came up with this crazy topic for today's conversation. And it was really by watching a video about you and your co-founder of Tuft Needle talking about this concept of disrupting broken systems. And I think that while the concept of disruption is really common in sort of the startup world, among small business owners, that concept doesn't necessarily resonate as much with them. But I think that there are so many lessons to be learned about your approach to entrepreneurship and how you sort of take a look at a process or a system or an organization and really work to identify what's not working here. And while we don't want to reinvent the wheel for something that is working, there can be a benefit to doing so if you can find a better way of doing that. So we're going to jump into a whole bunch of aspects of business management as it relates to the concept of disrupting. But before we do, if you could sort of fill in our audience a little bit more about your journey to entrepreneurship and how you got to where you are today.
Sure. So I'll do this as fast as I can. So I started at Penn State studying computer science and math, and I also discovered the entrepreneurship minor that was being offered. And through that program was actually where I met my co-founder, who would later be my co-founder. And it was a really good friend of mine, Dahi Park. After school, which is 2010, I spent 2 years in Silicon Valley, really getting hands-on experience and helping to take founders' ideas who have funding but no technical co-founder, take their concept, narrow it down to what is the problem they're solving, what is that MVP set of features, and this is from a software standpoint, design the software, engineer and build the software, launch it in a matter of a month to 2 months, and build out their design and engineering teams, hand them the keys, and move on. And so I did that for about 2 years. And that took me to the point at which Dahi and I got back together and decided we were going to start a company. And of all things to get into from software, we jumped into mattresses, which maybe we'll talk about how that happened. But we started a mattress company in 2012 called Tuft Needle. And we are the original disruptor of the industry. I would say within the cycle of disruption that happens in every industry, we were really the catalyst in this current phase of the mattress and sleep industry.
Yeah, you guys were like before Purple, before Casper,
Yes.
before all of that, right?
Yeah, we were the model that essentially all these hundreds of other lookalike businesses, some of which have bubbled up and become really big, and many of which have failed or are really, really small and hard to find. We were the company that was being modeled by the venture capital funded startups. So in June of 2012, we ran a test to see if this was a possibility, if this was something that was a pain, if there might be product market fits. The test passed. And from June of 2012 to October 2012, we figured out, how do you make a mattress? What's the supply chain look like? We didn't ever make a tangible good before, so we had to jump in very naively into a domain that's very unfamiliar. We started in October of 2012, officially launching our website. And we also started with $6,000 and a little bit of personal savings to float our bills because, we decided we did not want to raise capital. So we're bootstrapped, and meaning we funded with our own money of just the $6,000 and just a little personal savings to float our lifestyles. And then from the start to the finish which was in 2018 when we did a merger, which, everything evolved to something new, a merger with Serta Simmons, we had bootstrapped the whole way. So we started with $6,000, which is really unique. And we grew to, by 2018, $250 million in annual revenue profitably, before we did the big deal of merging original disruptor, largest manufacturer, come together to make a new sort of company in 2018. And so for the last 3.5 years or so, I've been the chief disruption officer at Serta Simmons. It's a very new experience for me. And that really sort of brings me to now, which is my sort of bookend of this full experience as an entrepreneur with my first startup concept is coming to a close. And I'm doing this residence at Penn State to share my story and to offer advising and to the students and professors however I can.
And it's certainly very valuable and unique experience. So we're lucky to have you. I want to jump on that. You talked about being an entrepreneur, right? And I think that this term entrepreneur can be really polarizing to a lot of people. And for a lot of our small business clients, that term just doesn't resonate with them. They don't see themselves as entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. So could you tell me, sort of in your definition, how would you define who an entrepreneur is, and maybe when you started to see yourself as one?
Yeah. I mean, there's different ways to define it. I've heard it referred to and used in different ways. And I would say the definition that I align with, and not probably saying it as simply as I probably could, but I would say it's a person who is driven to seek out opportunities and things that could be fixed, and has sort of the guts to take the lead in jumping in to fix those things, and is like the key person who takes the leap of faith that they could figure it out, and maybe not recruiting other people to join them to do that. And I don't necessarily subscribe to this idea that an entrepreneur is only somebody who builds a startup, and I've also heard startup defined as a fast growing small business that, not maybe not a small business, but a fast growing business that it could be really large and can grow really fast. And I don't necessarily align with the idea that a startup is only a fast growing thing or just a software company or something like that. I think an entrepreneur is somebody who finds an opportunity, takes that leap, and directs and takes charge and gets people to help them if they need. But either way, their goal is to fix something that needs to be fixing. So I think it can apply to small businesses. And I think that for a small business to succeed, they need to offer something that's unique, or at least slightly, at the very least, slightly better than what's being offered or not offered to a particular customer base.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that can be hard to do because I think that a lot of times someone who's really creative or has an idea starts with the idea, right? Like I have this thing and I know that it's going to solve problems across the world rather than maybe starting in the reverse and really thinking about a customer problem. So I know that that's been your mindset in all of this. It was your mindset when you started this business, identifying a problem and then providing a solution. Can you speak a little bit more to sort of the importance of that mindset when it comes to managing a business?
Yeah, so not to say that you can't just come up with an idea that sounds neat and go and make it and that it wouldn't work, but the as I went out to Silicon Valley after school and thinking that every startup out there and all these people were brainiacs and this is the promised land for entrepreneurs, and everybody's doing really innovative work, I found very quickly that the majority of people I met were nearly brainiacs, if not brainiacs, super smart. But what was a little disappointing was a lot of these really super smart people, very driven people, were working on things that I didn't define as innovative or new, and that was a little frustrating. So for every, it felt like for every, this is a broad stroke, but for every startup you hear about, there must be hundreds and hundreds of others that are very similar, um, or or you see these ideas that are sort of chasing whatever's popular, like let's build a social media application for cats or something. It's like totally useless. I'm just using a contrived example, but not a lot of innovation. There is definitely innovation, but it's not as prolific as you might think. And so, at least from my perspective. But when I sort of am looking and analyzing, as I wanted to start something of my own someday, I was looking at what were some of the patterns I see repeating in some of the successful businesses and some of the non-successful businesses, and it seemed like most of the very successful ones had founders that had origin stories, like a Marvel, hero has an origin story of like how they got started and why they are the way they are. And a lot of the companies that were not didn't really have an origin story. And so I think the reason why these origin stories manifested is that the founders seemed to have an issue or a pain that they addressed themselves. So essentially they were their own customer rather than trying to, come up with the next idea. I think the next evolution, kind of getting warmer, is okay, I should find a problem people have rather than try to come up with an idea. Find the problem, then we'll figure out how to fix it. And I think getting a little warmer, maybe a little easier, is what's something that has been a problem for me. I may understand it better because I could be a potential customer of it. So the idea, or for the phrase "eat your own dog food," you're your first customer. You should always use your own product. Is I think warmer and warmer towards reducing some of the barriers and challenges to entry as an entrepreneur. Not to say that you couldn't do it another way, but I think that this is the way. Well, this is definitely the way that we followed, and it was very helpful for us to make decisions and to find and follow our nose to a revenue stream and a market that was in need of something.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, if it's a problem for you, it's bound to be a problem for someone else.
Right.
So, okay, you have this idea, you have a problem, you identify that it needs to be solved, and you have a solution. How would you recommend that an entrepreneur or someone who's thinking of starting a business go about taking that idea and actually transitioning it into a profitable business itself? What's the
Well, I
transition?
think, yeah, that's a difficult thing to answer, because I think I don't really like giving advice. I like sharing experience, my past experience, and sort of the things we learned that's related to the question. Because I think every business is very different, even if it's the exact same business as mine. It's every business operates different, is in a slightly different environment, and all of that. So not all advice applies. But how do you take an idea or a problem and take it to profitability? Firstly, I'd like to offer a pretext for this. So when we decided, my co-founder and I, that we were going to start a business, we did not know what the idea or problem was. So what we did, sometimes people like get the idea or find the problem, and then they're like, okay, I want to go and do this thing. We decided we wanted to go and do this thing. We didn't know what that thing was. So that was a little unique about us as well. So we followed a process that we sort of like just pulled out of thin air, but using sort of what we felt was our common sense at the time and what we were seeing was working. And so we basically made rules of the game. Like, okay, so whatever the concept would be, what are the things it would need to abide by? And the number one item on the list was, let's decide that whatever we do, it has to be a problem we've experienced. And that's where we start. Not that you couldn't like I said, come up with an idea or identify someone else's problem. It had to be one of ours. And that was a rule that we made for ourselves, for our game. And I really just view business is just a game that you play, and you can get good at it and learn from others. And anyways, so that was one. Another was we didn't want to raise capital, and there are many other. There was like 8 or 9 items on our list of criteria that help us make a decision. We spent 2 weeks thinking about problems, and I mean that first week I didn't think of anything, and by the first day, it was like on a Monday on the second week, I came up with one problem. And then the second day I came up with a few more. And then by the end of the second week, I had like a whole page. It's like my mind started to learn what I needed it to do. And it's like the dam broke as I started kind of forcing it to think about the problems in my life, which is not something I think we do often with self-awareness. We complain about a lot of stuff in our life, but we don't realize we're complaining about it because we're so in the moment.
Sort of channel that into like a productive brainstorming session.
Right. And I don't know, I've found that like my brain adapts to what I need it to do. And so like, as I started that process, I didn't give up and my brain started adapting to it. So, and then at the end of the second week, Dehi, who's my co-founder, and I sat down and we looked at our problems. And from there, we evaluated them all and sort of just picked the ones that seemed interesting to us, that also we felt might be able to check off those criteria that we had listed. And we actually didn't intend to select the idea of like this problem I had, which was like a whole nother story of shopping for a mattress. Was like a nightmare. I had my first mattress after college, and then I didn't like the mattress at all. The product was bad. The shopping experience was bad. It was not like anything else I had experienced shopping for before. And so that's how, without diving into those details right now, was one that made my list. And we were like, we'll never do that one. But that's kind of funny because he had that experience too when he shopped for a mattress after college. And so, but we kept talking about it and joking about it. And so it eventually, because of that, we're like, well, maybe for kicks, we'll just try it. We're going to pick a few of these ideas and test them all and see if we can get a clue if there is any potential product market fit, meaning that we could find customers and those customers convince somebody that, this is probably a fix to some experience that they have that they might want. And so we ran these tests for 5 different concepts, and the mattress one made the shortcut because we thought it was kind of a joke, but it ended up being the one. I'm glad we did, but it ended up being the one that like did the best for our criteria.
But that's such a cool approach, right? I think that everyone, a lot of us, I think myself included, we're planners, right? We like to have made sure that something is incredibly thought out and perfected and just fine tuned. And you're not ready to release something until like it's perfect. And you sort of took an alternative approach, like let's throw it out there, let's test it and let's see what sticks.
Yeah.
Kind of go from there.
Yeah, and that is something I see. It was sort of at the time period I was going through school, and I wasn't studying business. I took a couple business classes, but the idea that a business plan is outdated
Mm.
It was already being talked about, and it was like cliche to say you need a business plan. So even back then it was, you don't need a business plan, skip the business plan. Not to say that, it doesn't it does, I think, make sense to build a spreadsheet and get an idea of what costs or opportunities there are and having some sense of how to do that, but you don't need to spend forever. And I would say it's not the business plan. What the point of that is not to spin your wheels trying to figure it all out in your plan, because you don't even know if it's going to work. And if this time that you're spending in the plan, a lot of what you're thinking and observing may be incorrect, and maybe kind of getting out there sooner than, like, the point is get out there sooner than later. And I feel like people are like, yeah, I don't need a business plan, but they still spin their wheels trying to figure everything out before they start. And that's sort of still missing the point of don't build a business plan. And so I've experienced that. Like, I was caught up with some of my previous concepts and just like perfecting it, writing. So, I mean, I'm a software developer. So writing the code, launch it, getting it all right and perfect. And I launch it and can't find a single customer. And it's like, wow, what a big waste of my time. And so when we approached Tuft Needle, it was sort of like, well, before we even decide which of these 5 ideas, how can we figure out if we can get it? How do we get a stranger to attempt to give us money? Can we get a sense of which one of these things, like, we would be easy, the path of least resistance to get a customer to give you money before we even have a product, before we figured out all the, crossing our T's and dotting our I's. And like, for a mattress, like, how would we sell it? How do you make a mattress? How much does it cost to make? Or will somebody buy a mattress online? How about we just break it down and figure out like what our value proposition is and try to convince somebody to buy it before we even have it? And then maybe that would give us the clue and whether it was worth our time to go figure out those things and take those steps. As an example, it's very, very ruthlessly, in an extreme way, pragmatic, solving only the problems you absolutely need to do. This is the approach that we took with all of these ideas, because we didn't want to spend 6 months to a year, like most startups, raising money, finding a founder, building a team, and building the product to launch it, to find it fails, and then if you have any money left, pivot, try something else. We didn't want to do that because we didn't actually have the time or our personal finance to even do it. We didn't have the luxury for it.
Yeah, and obviously, capital is something that's tricky for a lot of small business owners. We're still in the midst of a global pandemic and folks are struggling. So it can seem like a really scary time to pivot and try something new. But I think that's great advice to actually get out there and talk to customers and figure out what they need and what they want, and how to get in front of them. So let's talk about the customer experience a little bit, because I know that that's really important to you as an entrepreneur and as someone who's run a very successful business. This notion of focusing on the customer experience and having that be at front of mind when you're running a business is, I think, common sense. We get that. But in practicality, it's really difficult for a small business owner to run a business in general. It's very time consuming. It's very hard. They have to wear a lot of hats. So what recommendations do you have for small business owners? What are some things that they can do to really prioritize or shift their way of thinking to focus on the customer experience at all times?
Well, I think it really depends on what you want. And this is, I'm just going to speak from my perspective. What was one of our issues is we were always getting caught up in working on things that was busy work. I view financing and legal and supply chain, a lot of that is busy work. You can spend all your time in any one of those domains. And I would say, instead, rather than being careful not to fall down the rabbit hole of just work, you as a founder, if your goal is to grow, which ours was, then we need to be spending an inordinate amount of time, or the majority of our time, on the biggest and most impactful growth activities. And that can be hard when you're so close to the problem. And it's one of the reasons why having an advisor who can like snap you out of it and pull your head back. And it's why going on vacation can be useful. Zoom out a little bit and evaluate, what is it I'm doing? Is this the most important thing? Can I delegate that, or maybe not even do it at all? And what should I be doing? And I feel like when you start, and for us, the customer experience was a key part of our differentiation. But I think it really is where a lot of key differentiation occurs for most people. If you're a business and you're either providing a service or a product for another business or an organization, or a consumer, a customer could be a retailer or it could be a consumer. And so as a clue as to where you should be spending your time, what we did was we used our customer experience and surveying as our driver to make decisions, which might be finance related or supply chain related or product related, but it always sort of give us a clue as founders where we needed to put our time. And it also doesn't mean that, marketing and getting awareness to more people couldn't be driven by customer experience or customer feedback. It definitely can. I think it's nuanced and not maybe directly obvious. But let me zoom back really quick as context for our approach on customer experience. And I would just also want to say, I don't know how you define a small business specifically. I would say I just looked it up before the call, and it says a business that does between, zero, some amount of money up to 40 million or up to 100 people. If that's your definition, then our first full year we did 1 million, and our second full year we did 9 million, and our third full year we did 45. So I would say we were a small business according to that definition all the way up till the third year. So, and I'd say the first year is probably more applicable to a lot of small businesses where it's probably like a couple $100,000, $100,000 up to a few $1,000,000. So I would say we were a small business. So I think some of these things may actually apply. One of the things, we grew really fast. So sort of broke out of the small business category. But anyways, so how did we go from these 5 concepts, these 5 problems to doing a test? We broke each one down. Okay, so shopping for a mattress was a pain for me. What does that mean? We took a piece of paper and we just broke it out into its smallest bits. Okay, translate this. Well, define the problem so somebody can understand it. Well, you start searching online and you can't find any specifications between mattresses. This is just within this particular domain. You can't cross shop like you can computers, processor speed, memory, screen resolution. There's no specs. So that's difficult to make a decision. A lot of what you read online, you can tell is BS sales speak or, affiliate marketers, whatever. You have to go into, it seems like for me, I felt like I had to go into a store to actually understand what it was I would need. I don't know what firmness I like, asking me that. I don't even know what firmness I technically sleep on. It's a difficult thing to say. There's so many makes and models. There's different model, like each make has a different model per store, set of models is really confusing. If you buy the product, I can just keep going on and on. If you try to return it, you can't return it. You have to haggle with the salesperson and so on. So we list all the issues.
Going deeper for each question. And
we zoom in on what does it mean shopping for a mattress, or our other 4 ideas were different things. Some of them were software, but it's what is that problem? And we are defining it because we experienced it. So this is what I'm saying, solving your own problem makes it a little easier. So then we thought to ourselves, if we could wave a magic wand, how would we fix each of these things? And then we took that list and then, okay, well, starting, we can't do everything under the sun. So let's reduce it to what we think we might be able to start with if we were gonna choose this item or choose this path, and break that out into features on a website and build this fake site. We launched it, had a photo stock image of a mattress, credit card form. We launched it, we took out a small ad, and then somebody tried to type in their credit card form information. And this is a fake site with a fake picture of the mattress we bought. But it sort of was showcasing the features of what we were imagining might solve this problem for us. And with one ad on Google, we were able to convince somebody to click it and then go to the site. And then they're like, wow, I've never heard of this company before. I, probably have not bought a mattress online before, but they do enough of these things that would make my life easy. I'm going to try it. And they put their credit card form and attempted to buy, which declined because I didn't fully set it up. But we got our notification. But then that transitioned to this process of how we ran our business, which we learned from the software industry. And that is talking and observing your customer and how they go through their life with the particular problem that you found. And so for every person who bought a mattress from us, we called them until we couldn't keep up with that. And then it started with emails. And we called them and said, what did you like about the experience? What did you not like? And honestly, the most important aspect of this process, this isn't rocket science. And a lot of companies collect surveys and feedback, and I think just do nothing with it because it's easy to be lazy. It's easy to put your head in the sand and not confront the actual problems. But if you can I view the negative feedback is the gold. That is literally how you level up in the game. because if you can understand what about your service or about their problem can be made better, that gives you your roadmap on what to improve on in your business and what you can do to iterate and make your product better. Whether you're, a Silicon Valley VC funded business, or you're a restaurant that's trying to offer something unique, and you have all these restaurants in your locale that are technically competitors. And so I think it applies to everyone who's in business. And so what we did was we started calling, and it was all by hand, all manual. And then when it grew enough, we started doing an email. And then we eventually found a particular system that automated it. We use NPS, so we use a Net Promoter System. And we found a tool online that would automate this. And what was interesting was when we would send the survey out, we saw a lot of repeating patterns in what people were saying they didn't like. It could be anything from, now this is what I'm saying, that the feedback drives to all of the aspects of your business. Somebody might say something about pricing, which relates to your cost of goods and your cost, your overhead and your marketing budget and all of that. Like, so they might say it's too expensive, or wasn't what they, wasn't as much, what they were hoping for. Maybe it's not enough value for what they spent or whatever. Maybe the package showed up dirty or the box was torn. I mean, this is specific to a tangible good, but okay, so your logistics, and maybe shipping was slow. Maybe we need to set up a third-party logistics in another zip code so we can reduce the 5-day or 10-day delivery to New York, and we can get it 3 days. Maybe it was the mattress, like, sleeps too hot. What can we do to, what materials can we switch to? So it touches supply chain, finance, and whatever. And so what happens is that we see these patterns, and then when you fix like that ghost of a complaint that seems to continue to haunt you and repeat itself, what happens is your satisfaction score climbs a little bit over the average. And then also, the next problem that your customer maybe wouldn't have mentioned because they had this other bigger one, since the bigger one was solved, now this next big one is revealed, which might be something related to your customer service or something, or maybe product again. And then you solve that. And then the next big problem comes up that you see the pattern across customers. And then you keep following this. And what happens over time is your satisfaction goes from wherever you started, ours is pretty low, and for us, products, our return rate is pretty high, to zoom forward a few years, and our satisfaction is very, very high. The likes of Apple, Amazon, USAA Bank, UPS, Costco, those great companies that most people know. And what does that mean? That means that your customer base is talking about your product, and they become your salespeople, which reduces your cost of marketing. Because not only are they leading people to your product and service themselves, but it also makes it easier to advertise, because maybe somebody's heard about your product from a friend and they're like, oh, then they see your ads. So your ads are converting better, and so your cost to spend is lower. And so anyways, but it also helps
all these problems work to solve each other.
And it helps you make decisions. And so I'd say for us, we always focused on the problems. Like, you rated us a 0 out of 10 or a 3 out of 10 or a 5 out of 10 on likelihood to recommend us to someone else. Why? And if they didn't say why, we would pick up the phone and call them or send them an email. You rated us a 3 out of 10. We're so sorry. We want to fix this for you. Maybe we do a return, even though it's not in our best interest, it's in your best interest. Could you give us one reason why? So we can fix it. And people really love to tell you why. A lot of people do, and ends up turning them into evangelists. Sometimes if you go back and say, hey, we fixed that thing, thank you. And they end up selling your product to their friends, even though it didn't work for them. But anyways, it guides you on, what to actually decide on what to do. And now on the flip side, the promoters and the people who are rating you like 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10, what are they saying is their why? Because the survey would say 0 out of 10, how likely are you to refer Tuft Needle to a friend? And then 30% of people would answer that for us. And then some percentage would then answer the second question, which is why. And that gives us a clue. Your promoters, the people who are giving you high ratings, some of them will tell you why. So like, I think it was 30% answer our survey. And then of our promoters, the ones that say 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10, 10% would say why. And they're giving you clues as to what was exceptional for them. Make sure that that's exceptionality, whatever they experienced, all people experience. Mm-hmm. If it's the mint at the checkout at your restaurant, make sure it's your your waiter brings that mint to every table. I'm just using contrived silly example. That's for us, it was customer service. And so we wanted to make sure everybody experienced customer service. We had automated emails to prompt people to respond. These emails looked like they were written by customer service agents, but if you replied to it thinking you were talking to an agent, it would go to an agent and we would respond back. And so we increased our surface area to make sure people saw, holy crap, this company cares about us and they're willing to do the service that I don't get from another company. And it also gives you clues on what to advertise, because if somebody's like, oh man, this is what I love about you, well, then put that in your ads. If it's that, wow, your price is so inexpensive and I'm surprised, I thought the product wasn't going to be great and it blew my socks off. So advertise how good your product is, talk about the satisfaction, and then also how low the ratings, how high the customer satisfaction is and how low the prices are in your ad, like if that's the thing that keeps. And so it gives you clues into how to intrigue people and the thing that people really loved about you and was surprised about. So, but what I'm saying is that this iteration, this loop, which isn't complex to understand, takes some effort to stand up, takes some effort to do, and it takes a lot of effort to fix, is hard. And it's harder than like doing a lot of the busy work that may not matter right now, but it gives you the clues. And if your goal is to grow your business, or to increase the stickiness or the repeat purchase of people coming back to you or buying from you again, or selling to their friends and family, then at least for us, this was the silver bullet. I'd say there's no silver bullet that led Tuft Needle to being explosive in growth and very profitable. It was the sum of all things. We did a lot of things, but if there was a silver bullet, it was this process that taught us what we needed and showed us what we needed to do as entrepreneurs.
Well, like you said, right, it's a little bit time consuming, but that one process of surveying actual customers and getting their feedback and not being afraid to shy away from negative feedback, which I agree with you. I think a lot of people are, and that's why they avoid the feedback process. But if you're able to get over sort of that fear, and we're all a little, right, worried about, our egos get hurt if someone doesn't like the experience. That can be tough to get over. But if we can, and do it in a way that's really manageable, right? I think a lot of people think surveying is really complicated or really complex, and it can be as simple as asking everyone who checks out at your cash register the same question and making note of it. And identifying, like you said, your repeat customers and engaging them in a conversation and asking those things, and not just asking the question, but using it, like you said, to identify the patterns and then having the patterns solve the problems.
And I think that's the key. If I was going to guess, I would say that people will take those surveys if they believe that you'll actually use them. And a lot of people don't take surveys because like the company maybe is so terrible and the surveys are so detailed and long and whatever that they're like, why am I going to spend all this effort? You're not going to look at it anyway. And so I think the more that a customer would believe, the better you can articulate that you're actually going to use it, the feedback, and do something about it, the more likely somebody would give it to you. And I think they can kind of smell it innately, even though they don't think specifically or logically that way. I feel like emotionally someone can kind of feel if you're the type of company that would listen to this and do something about it. And also, we talked about an entrepreneur. Let's use the definition I used. If you're the type of person that's like has the gusto and the confidence and willing to take that leap of faith and the risk and go and fix and do all this work to go and start something, do yourself a favor and do the hard work to keep building and doing the things that are most important. Unless you're really happy with your current lifestyle or the quality of work you're doing and the purpose you're receiving, unless you're really satisfied with it, be careful not to get comfortable. Like for us, we've always found that we have to keep pushing ourselves as founders out of our comfort zone, and that the zone of uncomfortability is where you, as a founder and entrepreneur, you learn a lot, and it's hard. You push yourself to learn and do these uncomfortable things, but it's also where you have these epiphanies and where you do the work that starts to set you apart from your competition. It's hard work, but you did that first leap. Don't waste your time and not continue that process of exploring and trying to find what is the hard work I need to do, or the work I need to do to make an exceptional business for my customers, so they buy more and tell their friends, and I can keep growing if that's your goal.
Yeah, not only do you improve your existing products, but customer needs change on a regular basis. And in order to identify how those things are changing, you have to stay in tune with sort of their pain points. All really awesome advice. I want to transition a little bit and talk about another really challenging aspect of being a business owner, especially right now during this period, right? We're sort of using that Great Recession term. And all of these folks are leaving the workplace, and a lot of retail businesses and service industry businesses are struggling to identify and retain quality talent. So, in addition to prioritizing their customers, as we just discussed, small business owners have to work on employee management. What strategies have you found, or maybe what have you learned about how to establish strong relationships with your employees so that you keep good people and have a strong team?
That's a loaded question, and I think there's a lot of things that I can say that may or may not be the right answer for that, depending on what somebody's looking for, what you're looking for. I would say it starts with, okay, again, I don't like giving advice, but I'll share, my opinions and things that I believe about what worked for us and from our experience. And that is, your team members are also customers. And it's becoming more and more apparent that those customers of yours, these employees, have options. And in like labor economics, they talk about this variable called psychic cost, which is the mental, emotional load that somebody has to overcome to pack their bags and move somewhere for a job, for labor somewhere else, is for some people really, really high. If you have a lot of friends, a lot of family, if you have kids, and you have a lot of like specific requirements in your lifestyle, as far as like you have a house and you need a garage or whatever it is, the more in your life, the more psychic cost it may, depending on your personality and where you are in your life, it may be more of a psychic cost or not. Well, what COVID did was it accelerated this evolution, like it or not, to being a more remote and digital world. Software is eating the world in every aspect. I think eventually software will eat all of our world. And that's what's happening with labor. And I think that going remote, and the fact that companies had to out of necessity, and then later, as some go back into office, a lot of them continue. They figured it out. Some didn't. Like some value it, some don't. That maybe we should be a hybrid or be fully remote. And so what that's done is it's reduced the psychic cost. So it's made it really easy to jump from one business to another and view a job as potentially a product that somebody's buying from you and what you're offering. And I found that as a founder, when I share, I've always heard like, your why. Cynic talks about this with Start With Why. The book Start With Why. It's really important for hiring too. Why do you exist? And when people have, some people really care about what they do. And I really like those people. That's the type of people we hire. But some people don't care and they're just looking for a job, whatever. But people have a choice. And I think a lot of people don't know what they want to do with their lives. And I think a lot of those are employees, and they're looking for someone who's found something that they want to do, or an organization that has found a mission. And they can go and subscribe to the thing that, I don't know what I want to do with my life. Here's my skill set. I like that. I'm going to join that. And I think it starts with that. It starts with, what is your purpose for being? And is this something that other people are interested in too? And otherwise, you're going to be an entrepreneur of one. But how do you convince somebody to like, hey, you're not satisfied with that, come and work for me? I think there's three aspects. I like, there's so many ways to slice and dice, and no model's perfect. But the model I use to understand a person's happiness on my team, when I'm talking to a team member in a one-on-one or whatever, is I never ask, are they happy? I've heard happiness for an employee is like three things. And I mean, this is like, this is contrived, but I think it's worked really well for a model for me to understand. And one is purpose. That's your why. Like, does somebody understand why this company and this organization exists? And is it interesting to them? We're doing mattresses, but nobody wants to. I don't know if I've ever met somebody who's like, oh yeah, I want to do mattresses, unless their family has done it in their heritage. It's more like, yeah, I want to fix this big problem. Let's like go and screw up this and disrupt this industry and fix it because I've also experienced it. Or, most companies aren't doing something noble in some sense that I've found, and this one does it for me, and I found people who care about that. So, sense of purpose, and also knowing what is it I'm doing, and I believe and know how that helps us solve our problem. Our why, if you were to sum up like that hate list and like what we didn't like about the industry, it was obvious that mattress stores and retailers did not care about customers as their number one priority. Otherwise, they'd allow you to trial a product. They'd ship you a product faster. Their products would be better suited and iterated upon based on customer feedback. And they've been getting away with this for a long time, and because they could. But meanwhile, people are starting to wake up and say, this company in the phone industry or in the car industry is teaching me that I don't have to settle for this stuff, and I'd like a company that cares more about me. Our mission as a company, what was our why as Tuft Needle, was to build the first truly customer-centric mattress company. Not to say that there weren't, but they were definitely hard to find if there were. But the first customer-centric mattress company, and in our revolution, a disruption is sort of like a revolution. Our revolution was let's evolve this industry, the mattress industry, our competitors, and just the market and what customers expect and can get, to being customer centric and not all about the return for the investors. I don't know, these mattress companies that stand for almost nothing. And that was our whole thing. So that was our mission. That was our why. And I think it's important as a founder to know you could rattle off your why like that. Why did you start your company? Why do you wake up as a founder and do the thing? And and this is something that you can sell somebody on to join you. So that's really important to have. The other two aspects of like employee happiness that I as part of this model is there growth for them? And so growth would be, are they challenged in learning? Because over time, I mean, at least for me, I burn out if I do the same thing every day. Some people like that and the comfort of that, but I don't like that. And a lot of people that we've found that we like to hire also burn out or don't like change. That could be a role that you're in that changes because you're just growing. Or it could be they can try new things and aspects and go from engineering to supply chain. Holy crap, like this cross domain enables them to do incredible things. Or customer service to engineering. They start to think as like a customer does and like what things they can automate for that. And so there's a lot of cross pollination, but you're able to engage people's minds and their crave for growth. It's also growth as far as like financial. And if you can't do that or offer that, then be honest and upfront and usher people out and say, look, I can't do this for you with your financial goal and so on. And I think the third thing I found following this model is autonomy. And like, does a person have the room to be creative and not have to have every decision made by their boss or the founder, that they have room to trial and error, and they're encouraged to try things even if it may not work, and they're not going to get punished for it or demoted for it. So they're encouraged to experiment and try, and just have some room to like have control over their lives. It's like in their job is like half their life. And so let people make decisions, and that gives them room for growth. And as a manager, I've always heard that one of your jobs is to teach and to educate and to replace yourself with the people that you're leading. And that really empowers people. And I think from those three aspects, obviously beyond just the standard benefits and the obvious, I think those three things are huge for a lot of people who are looking for more than just the money or the healthcare or whatever it is. And Tuft Needle in our third year, I mean, we had 2 millionaires join as employees, and they joined because of the purpose and the culture that we had cultivated. And so that became the value prop. So when I think about employees and attracting people, I always like to lead with who we are and what we're, our mission is and what we're here to do as our initial pitch, because I want people to join for that as opposed to just the money.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's almost freeing to small business owners, you would think, because I think that so often business owners think that in order to hire, they need to be able to compete with salaries or with benefits. And what you're saying is you don't have to offer super competitive salary and benefits in order to hire. I mean, of course, those things are important, but one way that you can differentiate yourself from other competitors when it comes to hiring is focusing on your purpose and how these folks fit in with that purpose and help solve that problem.
And I feel like if you have to lean on that, it's like leaning on, it's like obviously for anything somebody buys costs money. And if you have to lean on the fact that you're on your price point as your leading value differentiation, you're going to then, I mean, obviously price is a factor, but is there more than just price that somebody would choose you over? And if you have to like lean on price, man, is that like a commodity? Man, is that something that a competitor can probably, it's commoditized, it's democratized. It's not something that can always be difficult to defend, as opposed to what else beyond just the money is the reason why I would buy from you. And so it draws in customers if you lead with price, which is okay. But it will lead to customers that are driven by that. And so their complaints and their emotions and their decisions are going to be driven around the money, as opposed to customers who are looking for something else. If you have something else to intrigue or to compel somebody to consider your service or product for. I feel like it's the same with your employees. Of course, you can like just spend more money and offer more benefits and more competitiveness, or fringe benefits or environment benefits, like, well, you can work remote here, but that's not something I feel is super defensible. Like, this is something that a competitor could eventually offer if they decide to. They can spend more money and become more competitive with salary. And, you're going to draw in people primarily driven by benefits. And so that's going to, I mean, these are broad strokes, but, talking broadly, given that there's so many variables, but trying to make some sense of reality. I feel like, if you draw people, that's their primary driver for deciding to join you, then that's going to be their primary driver to stay. And so you're sort of locked in as the main stickiness as to why. But if you're leading with, beyond just the benefits, but like, this is what we're doing. And, and this is what you'll be able to do in this environment, and the kind of decisions and freedom you'll have, and the education you can get, and coaching you could get, whatever. Back to the growth I was saying, beyond financial growth, but like the growth in learning, or the purpose in what you're doing, and why your job matters, and why this company matters. You lead with those things, it'll filter out the people. At least I found it filters out the people who are just primarily driven by the money and join you for that. And so, yes, money is important. Financial growth is important for probably everybody. But at least there are people that might join you and it not be all about the money. And you can see examples of this, assuming the details of these stories are completely true. But like Zappos, as an example, was notorious for paying really low salaries, and they relied on the culture as the primary driver. People would join, and people would join because they're like, screw this other job. I'm being paid really well, but it's not worth it for my life. And I'd rather join a company that cares more about me and my environment and my mental health and blah, 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 blah. And that was one of the reasons why people joined Zappos. And so it enabled Zappos to, save more money for their marketing. So they moved money from overhead to marketing and our product or whatever it is. And then, then they just focus on this culture as their primary driver. Or, maybe working at Tesla or SpaceX, Elon's always in the news. And I think one thing he's great at is compelling people with his why. Who wouldn't want to work as a scientist or engineer with the ability for a company that wants to enable mankind to live on Mars? Whether it's possible or not, how cool would it be to even have the opportunity or the chance to say that you were a part of that? And that is a really big driver. And so I would expect that Elon probably has in that company has probably an ability to maybe save a little on the overhead, and people are willing to take a bit of a cut so that they can even just be a part of this. And so that's sort of how I think about managing and compelling people to join and stay, because I want people who want to be here for what we're doing, not just about all the money.
Well, and again, if the theme of today's session is disrupting broken systems, right? How we're hiring clearly is not working if it's not been effective. So thinking about what other tools or what other components of your company can you leverage to do that and maintain successful employees. Mm-hmm. I think those are all really great techniques, good approaches. So we're getting near on time here. So I want to start to sort of wrap up. And I think to do that, I'm going to ask you one of my favorite questions to hear folks sort of talk about. And that's this notion of making mistakes. Being an entrepreneur means experiencing failure and rebounding from that failure and being willing to move forward. And from our mistakes, we often learn a lot of really valuable lessons. So can you tell me about the best mistake you've ever made?
The best mistake we've made. I don't know if I'd even define that as mistakes. I think that's hard for me to find. hard for me to find that one, because that would be the definition of something that we succeeded on and wasn't a mistake. Maybe I would say, what's something that we did that we didn't think would work, or on first blush would maybe seem to be a mistake, but that worked really well for us. I'll tell you one that I think the first is my parents and my friends thought it was a mistake to get into the mattress industry. They're like, my mom said, couldn't you just stick to, I was like, call my parents. I'm like, we're jumping into mattresses. And I had to like tell my parents I'm leaving this Silicon Valley job that was like really cool and, advanced, and, it's the future is software, whatever. And I remember my mom saying, couldn't you just stick to software? Like, she was really worried. My friends thought it was the stupidest idea they ever heard. I mean to say, like, it was a ridiculous idea. And, my dad told her, it's like, well, let's just see what he does. Maybe he's on, let's just, he's on to something. Now my mom's like my biggest fan. I think that a lot of what if you're using a paradigm or like a model or some decision-making framework that, really it makes sense. You have this intuition, and for us, it was, we knew we should start with a problem, and that led us to a random problem of shopping for a mattress. And then following our nose, like trying something that people were saying didn't make sense at all, was maybe a mistake that other people would say was a mistake, but for us I'm really glad we did. I would also say, let me just share a couple other mistakes that are actual mistakes that I wish I could go back and change. A lot of our mistakes, I wouldn't change much. I don't regret basically anything, because as an entrepreneur, you're kind of, especially a growing company, you're probably learning on the job and have imposter syndrome, which we, for the most part, did every day. But one of our mistakes was we didn't value marketing as much in the beginning. We thought best product wins. And then we learned later, it's not just the best product that wins, it's the best marketer wins. And the best product out there, if you also have a good product, that makes you sticky. And so if you can convince somebody you're the company to choose, that's the main skill, getting in front of people. I used to think marketing was bad. Your product should be the organically driving marketing engine. And I don't believe that anymore. I believe that it's par for the course. It's how business is done in our country, in our region. And how else are you going to get in front of and have people discover you? And that's marketing. I think that's important. I also feel we didn't let people go. Dahi and I were always pretty slow about deciding when somebody should leave. And one of the things in hindsight I realized that I probably should have done is when I found that people weren't optimistic about our future, they should leave. And, even as founders or leaders, you don't want a leader who doesn't believe, who's, dragging themselves to the mud, doesn't believe and have hope in the future of the business. And why are we here? You obviously don't have confidence in our why and what we're here to do. So it's probably better for you to move on. And I wish I had understood that and helped coach people out. It's okay to let people go, even if, it's a hard thing to do. It feels like a bad thing, but honestly, it's a really good thing. If somebody could probably find joy as an employee somewhere else, and you can find somebody who value what it is that role would be providing more than somebody else. And I think the way you go about it is in a kind, respectful way, and maybe identifying this and helping coaching people out. But we had almost zero turnover in our first 5 years. Our benefits are great, growing really fast, really fun. It was definitely a honeymoon period. And I look back and say that we probably could have really benefited from bringing new people in and getting more diversity of thoughts and experience, and coaching people out as they were sort of like too much learning on the job with their role. So I think those are a couple of the mistakes that we made that I would want to go back and fix. Not so much that it was a mistake that turned into a serendipitous, good thing that we had done.
Yeah. But again, I think that we all tend to fear failure and trying new things at the risk of them failing. So I love your perspective on always growing and learning from those instances and becoming a better business and a better entrepreneur moving forward. I can't thank you enough for your time. Today, you have given so many valuable tips and perspectives for our small business owner clients. We're so grateful to have you here with Invent Penn State for the next month. And I want to really thank you for your time today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Thanks again to JT. I'm going to just sort of wrap up today by sharing just a couple reminders about the Small Business Development Center and how we hope that you'll connect with us again soon. Visit our website where we post all of our upcoming webinars, our training events, links to sign up for either virtual or in-person consulting. Again, that's no cost, it's confidential and really customized to your needs. So if you're ready to adopt some of the strategies that JT shared today, please reach out with us and we'd love to help you put those structures in place. This is our information, where to reach us. Find us on the web at sbdc.psu.edu or sbdc@psu.edu for email. You could also follow us on our social media accounts. We are on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter, all using the handle Penn State Sbdc. So before you go today, we would love your feedback. If you're tuning into this on demand, we'd still love your feedback on today's session. All of your input really provides us with valuable insights. Like JT said, you got to ask for feedback because we want to improve our webinars and our programs and services moving forward. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you at another Sbdc event again soon. Have a great day.